into synthetic rubber just to protect the cartel's market share.
So when the U.S. actually enters the war, and the military desperately needs synthetic rubber for the tires on its own Jeeps and supply
The
trucks,
U.S. finds itself dangerously behind.
it's mind-boggling. It's like you are handing the enemy the blueprints for a high-altitude fighter jet and
Mhm.
simultaneously slashing the tires on your own country's supply trucks. How does a corporation justify that?
By viewing themselves as a sovereign entity, to a global monopoly like Standard Oil, national borders are secondary to market dominance. These cartel agreements were negotiated and treated like treaties between nations. And this wasn't a secret either. Congressional investigations during the war, like the Truman Committee and the Kilgore Committee, they dragged these executives in to testify.
Right, the Truman Committee.
Yeah, Senator Harry Truman reviewed the evidence of Standard Oil suppressing the rubber technology and publicly described their behavior with one very specific word: treasonable.
Treasonable. From a sitting U.S. senator who would go on to be president.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered the factories and the fuel. Standard Oil provides the technology, Wall Street provides factory loans. But, a war machine requires daily liquid cash.
Yes.
You have to pay soldiers, you have to buy raw materials on the open market, you have to keep the lights on. Where is the actual cash coming from while the world is locked down in a global war?
For the mechanics of liquid cash, we have to look at the commercial banks. And specifically, the biggest player on the board, Chase National Bank.
Yeah, the details regarding Chase in these declassified Treasury files are genuinely sickening. Between 1936 and 1941, Chase helped the Nazi government raise over $20 million on the American dollar exchange.
And they used a financial instrument called Rookwanderer marks.
Right. Let's break down exactly how a Rookwanderer mark functioned mechanically, because it was a highly sophisticated laundering operation.
It really was. On paper, these were supposed to be special currency instruments for German nationals living in America who wanted to return to the fatherland.
Right, so if I'm a German living in New York in 1937, and I want to move back to Berlin, I can buy these marks at a discount.
Mm.
But how does that actually turn my U.S. dollars into a benefit for the Nazi war machine?
Well, think about the flow of the currency. The Nazi government is desperate for U.S. dollars because dollars are the global reserve currency.
Right.
They need dollars to buy oil and steel from neutral countries. So, Chase Bank brokers a deal. A German sympathizer in New York gives Chase U.S. dollars. Chase takes a hefty commission. I mean, they made over $500,000 on these fees alone.
Which was a ton of money back then.
A huge amount. Chase then deposits those U.S. dollars into a blocked account controlled by the Reichsbank. In return, the individual gets a certificate for Rookwanderer marks, which they can only spend inside Germany.
So the Nazi treasury just hoovered up 20 million hard U.S. dollars to spend on the international market.
Exactly.
But what makes this so incredibly dark is where the German marks used to back this scheme originally came from.
Yeah, this is the really grim part. The Treasury documents reveal that the currency used to fund the German side of this operation often came from Jewish refugees.
Oh my God.
When Jewish families desperately fled Nazi persecution, the state confiscated their bank accounts and their property. The Nazi government then took that stolen wealth, repackaged it as Rookwanderer marks, and used Chase Bank's New York offices to sell it for U.S. dollars.
So they are literally fencing stolen refugee assets on Wall Street. And what's crazy to me is the timeline here. In November 1938, you have Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass. It is a highly organized, massively violent, very public pogrom across Germany. Synagogues burn, Jewish businesses are smashed, thousands are dragged into the streets.
Right.
The entire world sees this on the front page of their newspapers. Did Chase pull back?
No, not at all. The records actually show they increased their volume of business with the Nazi government after 1938.
And it continues even after the war formally begins. When Germany occupies France in 1940, most American businesses see the writing on the wall and evacuate. But Chase, along with J.P. Morgan, deliberately kept their branches in Paris open for the duration of the Nazi occupation.
Yeah. The head of Chase's Paris branch was a man named Carlos Niederman, and the declassified letters between Niederman and his superiors in Manhattan, they capture the culture of these institutions perfectly.
What do you mean?
Well, Niederman develops a highly collaborative relationship with the German occupation authorities. He writes a letter back to headquarters boasting that Chase is experiencing a rapid expansion of deposits.
Wait, I remember reading the date on that specific letter in the file. Niederman wrote that letter boasting about the very special esteem Chase enjoyed with top German officials in May of 1942.
Yes, May 1942.
We were already in the war.
Yeah.
The Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in December 1941. So 5 months after the United States officially declares war on Germany, 5 months into American troops deploying and dying.
Right.
An American bank executive in Manhattan is reading a glowing profit report from his guy in Paris about how much the Nazis loved doing business with them. I mean, for you listening, just imagine the cognitive dissonance of that. It is staggering.
It speaks to the core principle we discussed earlier. International banking viewed itself as a sovereign entity above the conflict. And Chase in Paris wasn't just doing passive bookkeeping either.
What else were they doing?
Declassified FBI records show they actively participated in the persecution of their own clients. Chase froze the accounts of French Jews in occupied France.
And the detail that really sticks out to me is that they didn't even wait for a gun to be put to their heads. The documents show Chase moved to block Jewish funds and property preemptively, like before the Nazi authorities even formally requested it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, they were anticipating the regulatory desires of their Nazi clients to maintain that special esteem.
It's disgusting.
It is, and this complicity was systemic across the commercial banking sector. If you look at Deutsche Bank, Germany's largest commercial bank, they were deeply embedded in the physical machinery of the Holocaust. Deutsche Bank directly provided the financing for the construction of the IG Farben chemical facilities at Auschwitz.
And the collateral they used to secure those loans, it was gold stolen from Jewish victims.
Right. Now, decades later, the modern leadership of Deutsche Bank would commission historical reports and acknowledge their ethical responsibility. But at the time, and in the immediate aftermath of the war, no Deutsche Bank executive was held criminally liable for financing Auschwitz.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit and look at the whole board.
Okay.
We have Wall Street funding the cartels, Standard Oil sharing the aviation fuel chemistry, Chase fencing stolen assets in New York and freezing accounts in Paris. This is a massive, sprawling spiderweb of international finance operating seamlessly across enemy lines during a total war.
It's a global machine.
But a web like that doesn't just manage itself. Where are these international transactions actually clearing? How do the British, American, and German bankers physically settle their accounts when their countries are literally bombing each other?
They needed a central nervous system, a sanctuary. And that brings us to the most secretive, powerful institution in this entire history. The Bank for International Settlements, or the BIS.
Located in Basel, Switzerland, operating out of a rather nondescript former hotel near the railway station, right?
Exactly. The BIS was established in 1930. Its founding consortium included the Bank of England, the Reichsbank, and several Morgan-affiliated American banks.
Okay.
Officially, its public mandate was simply to facilitate and organize German reparation payments from World War I, but its actual structural function was far more ambitious.
What was it really for?
It was engineered to be a permanent, legally immune meeting place where the central bankers of the world could conduct business together, completely shielded from the political or military actions of their respective governments.
I want you to visualize the boardroom of the BIS during the absolute height of the Second World War. Millions of soldiers are tearing each other to pieces across Europe, North Africa, and the Pacific. Cities are being leveled. And while that bloodbath is happening, the board of directors of the BIS is sitting around a table in Switzerland. Who exactly is in that room?
The roster is surreal. Sitting at the table, you have Walther Funk, the president of the Reichsbank, who would later be convicted of war crimes at Nuremberg. You have Hermann Schmitz, the director of IG Farben, who would be tried for his company's use of slave labor and poison gas. You have Baron Kurt von Schroeder, the financier we mentioned earlier who organized Hitler's initial funding.
And Emil Pool.
Yes, Emil Pool, the vice president of the Reichsbank. This is the man who personally oversaw the logistics of processing dental gold extracted from the mouths of concentration camp victims. He was a director, sitting right there at the table in Basel.
And who is presiding over this table, who is sitting at the head, leading the financial discussions with these convicted war criminals.
It's an American.
Thomas McKittrick, the man we introduced at the very beginning of this deep dive. A Wall Street insider, serving as president of the BIS from 1940 to 1946.
It functions exactly like a VIP casino operating in a no-man's land. The generals are out in the mud directing the slaughter, but their accountants are sitting inside the warm casino, sharing a drink, clearing the checks, and ensuring the global financial system remains perfectly intact regardless of who wins the war.
That casino analogy is perfect. McKittrick is traveling freely through Nazi-occupied Europe, socializing with top officials. And the documents show that in December